Yo, Trev, you know what day it is?
Yes, sir. It's Tuesday, Jay.
Well, hey, man, you know what that means.
I believe that means it's time for Tuesdays with Trevor.
Hey, by the way, we're live at Busch Stadium today, man. So let's get things rolling. Let's go.
Let's go. Coming at you live from St. Louis Busch Stadium. Welcome. Hello, welcome to Tuesdays with Trevor, a show dedicated to using youth sports to create positive change. Be ready to get inspired, uplifted, and empowered through thought-provoking conversations specific to the world of youth sports with some of the top minds in the game. I'm your co-host, Trevor Rosenthal, MLB All-Star and single-season save record holder for the St. Louis Cardinals, along with Jason Holzer, co-founder of 4D Athletes and best-selling author. Jason, great to see you in person. Live show. How you doing?
Doing well, man. You know, it was about a year ago we met in person as well. And so lots happened in a year. We started this podcast, you know, from there. And now we're actually here live in studio. So it's kind of cool how we started off Instagram Live. Then we moved to like putting stuff on Apple Podcasts. And now we're like our first in-person episode. So feeling good, man. Cards got a good win last night. The boys saw a home run, you know, a double steal from Burleson and Goldschmidt, the two least likely people to pull off a double steal. So, you know, anything really is possible after you see something like that. So what about you, Trev?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to be here. I'm glad you got to enjoy the family, bringing the boys in town. You know, that's what it's all about. And that's what we're talking about here today is how do we impact this youth and continue to give parents, coaches the information to make the most of this opportunity that we call youth sports. And I just have to say real quick and do a little bragging on my own kids, on my daughters. So I have 3 daughters and they love gymnastics. They're big into gymnastics. But my middle daughter, she had been struggling recently, and she's trying to make this move. She's trying to go from level 3 to level 4, and she was having a tough time. And so, obviously, as parents, we want what's best for her, and we took this into consideration and trying to figure out how we could help her. So we had a meeting with the coaches, and they basically told us, you know, it's not an ability thing. She has the opportunity, she has the ability to accomplish what she's trying to do to make this jump from level 3 to level 4, but we need to see a little bit more effort. We need to see her focus and have a little bit more effort. In other words, just work harder on a couple different areas. And so as parents, we're thinking, well, how do we communicate this to an 8-year-old child? We don't want to discourage her. And I'm going to steal a quote from our guest today. His dad, actually, Rick Carpenter, wrote a book, From the Backyard to the Big Leagues. And in chapter 4 is titled, chapter 4 is titled Challenge Them Early. And the quote that I want to share is, he says, there's a fine line between pushing them and bashing them. And that's what we really wanted to take into consideration when we had this conversation. So we came up with a plan and we said, this is what we can do to help her conceptualize the effort that she needs to put in. We told her, you know, there's 3 different paths you can take. There's the easy path, which the easy path means you can do a little bit less than what you're doing right now. Or you can take the medium path. The medium path would be doing the same thing that you're doing right now, and that will equal the same results that you're getting right now. The easy path, you're going to expect, as far as results, you're going to expect maybe a little bit less results. Or there's the hard path. You can choose the hard path. You can put in more effort, and you're going to be able to expect better results than you're getting right now. So we had this conversation, and she told us that she wanted to choose the hard path, which as a dad, are like, okay, let's go. Love that. But we got to see what she does. So not too much longer, a couple of days later, we got the feedback from the coaches. We got an email, and they said, wow, Adeline showed up today, my 8-year-old daughter, and she had worked harder than she'd ever worked. And if she keeps this up, she's going to be able to make that jump and go on to the next level. So just a little bragging moment. Wanted to share that story, and I think it's relevant. Gave a little innuendo to our guest today, who we're very excited to have, a good friend of mine, and I think he's going to give us a lot of good information. So go ahead, and Jason, you want to introduce who we got on the set?
Yeah, man, and kudos to your daughter for choosing the hard path because, you know, I think that's one of those parenting moments where you're excited whenever your kid makes the choice for themselves to do what's best for them. And for her, she was willing to challenge herself. So that's a great story, man. And, you know, today we got Matt Carpenter on the show. He is a 12-year veteran, 3-time All-Star, and Silver Slugger Award. He's also a dad of 2, though, right? So that's the main thing. Like, we're all dads here. So he's more than just a baseball player. He's got a lot of wisdom, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience in life in general. So, Matt, we're excited to have you here today. Thank you for joining us. How's it going, man? You know, you're back from rehab. You know, things have been going well for the Cardinals since you got back. So a little bit of Carpenter luck, I think, is what we got here, too.
Hey, guys, I appreciate you having me. No, it's been good. It's been great to put the birds on the bat, back on the chest, putting in this uniform, being back in St. Louis has been a thrill. Certainly, something that, I didn't expect. I didn't think, when I left here in 21 that I would ever be back in this stadium. But it is something that my family and I have just truly been so honored to get this opportunity. And like you mentioned, the team's playing great right now. We've, I think we've won 6 out of our last, 9 games or so, and are trending in the right direction. Big win last night with a great team in Baltimore in town, and hopefully we can continue that tonight.
Matt, first question here is you reflect on your life in general, right? And you've always come across as a very authentic guy. You always came across as baseball is something I do. It's not who I am. So talk about, how did you develop that sense of a strong identity of I'm more than what I play baseball, and how did your parents also instill that in you of like there is more to life than just what you do on a field. It's more about the person you're becoming because you played, and not just who you were because you played.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be raised by 2 great people, both my parents, who've have been married since they were 18 years old. Very, very lucky to just have, a really great family foundation that they've created. And they would be the first ones to tell you that, it wasn't them. It was their relationship with Christ. Our family and where we, what I was very fortunate to be raised in is in that Christian home. And the focus being on our faith and not our performance and what we do as people, our works, our accolades, our awards. My dad was a very successful high school baseball coach. Spent a lot of hours doing that, but never made that his priority. And my mom was the same way, and just instilling that in me, and not just me, and both my brother and sister at a very young age, I think is the reason that I was able to do it as I've grown up, and then also trying to do the same thing for my kids.
As a quick follow-up, for parents out there with kids in sports, what would be a suggestion or two to help their kids become more authentic, more their identity is placed like in their faith as opposed to the sport they play? What would be like a main suggestion that you would give for that?
Well, I think, first is just understanding, the relationship with Christ first. I mean, I think that's the foundation, knowing, that, he died for our sins, and that, there is nothing you can do, or there is no, I think the biggest misconception as a human being is that you've got to, do all these great things to be loved by God. And then, the Christian walk is telling you the exact opposite. Your sins have been paid for. You don't need to do anything. There's you are enough. You've accomplished enough. You are, that I think that's where that authenticity comes from. And just instilling that in your children, I think is very important. And I think I think about my dad and just that fatherly relationship. I mean, I never felt like I had to do something to earn his love. I never felt like I had to get 4 hits for him to, care about me or love me. And that, I think that is the same relationship that we have with Jesus. Is there, your performance doesn't matter. You're going to struggle. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up. You're going to screw up. You're going to do things wrong. You're going to get in trouble. You're going to, I've done many things that I regret. I'm sure we all have. And, the price has been paid.
Yeah. Unconditional love, man. That's beautiful. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love that you bring up your dad. I mentioned the book From the Backyard to the Big Leagues, and reading through that, it really gives a good perspective. Obviously, I know you, and we've spent some time together and become friends over the years, and I've always admired your work ethic and how you go about your business. But reading this book gives a long story of how that has been brought about, and it seems like your dad was very intentional about the things that he implemented, and obviously he has a coaching background, but to see the way that he was able to separate coaching and parenting and obviously raise 3 amazing children who have been very successful in life, and Matt, yourself included. But I want to talk a little bit about a topic that he spent some time on, and mental and physical toughness. We live in this world that's obsessed with outcomes or results, But we know as professional athletes that those are just really points of feedback, and they're a part of the equation. They're not the whole equation. And really what's more important is the process that we use to get the results. And, for example, we see players always evaluating their game. Carp, I've seen you're a master at this, and really no matter the outcome, good or bad, you're always looking for ways to improve or get a better result in some area. And this has allowed you to stay at the highest level for over a decade, which is very impressive. We've also seen the other side where talented players get to a high level but are unable to make adjustments as needed. For instance, these players will face some adversity, failure, and they start to shut down and accept the defeat as their destiny. What advice do you have for parents and coaches to help them understand the importance that they cultivate a mindset of intentional growth and learning, being a continuous learner as yourself, both on and off the field?
Man, that's a great question. I think about, I would consider, when I look at my dad, I think hardest worker I know. And I've heard him say that about his dad. And then, my hope as a father is that my son will one day say that about me. So I think it stems from, one, the example that you set for your kids. All you can control in life is your attitude and your effort. I mean, everything else that happens is completely out of your control. I mean, I've had many, many failures as an athlete, and I've had some successes, and both of them, completely out of my control, outside of just the work that I put in and the effort that I bring every day. And then also, to add to that is just your outlook and your perspective on it. So I think that, my dad set a great example for me of what that looks like. The effort aspect, the attitude, his mindset going into it, just how hard he worked at stuff, but also, the perspective that at the end of the day, you have no control over these results. You have no control over what happens. And especially in the game of baseball where there's so much failure, similar to life. I mean, things are going to happen that are, you're unexpected. Things are going to happen that aren't always great, but your mind, the way you handle those adversities and how you come out on the other side is, I think, what really kind of defines you as a person, a competitor, as an athlete.
Do you remember this story? So I read this story your dad shared in the book about when you missed a field goal. You missed a field goal, and the team ended up losing that game by 1 point. And your dad was obviously, he shared in the book and explained the story. It's hard. It's hard as a parent to see failure, and you always want the best for your kids, and you hate to see them go through adversity and struggles. But he was intentional in that moment of getting you in the car and explaining, like, hey, this might be the best thing that happened. This is a learning experience. This isn't a failure. This is an opportunity to learn from it and move forward. I don't know. Do you remember that story? Could you maybe share that? I
do, for sure. Man, it was, I look back on that. It's hard not even, I still get emotional thinking about it. I was a sophomore on the varsity as in football player. I was our tight end, but I was also our place kicker. And anybody that follows football knows that, the extra point, the kicker, the field goal, the games are sometimes won and lost by the kicker. There's a lot of pressure on that, especially at the professional level, but really at any level. And sophomore on the varsity and a team that was fighting its way to get into the postseason playoffs, this game, we were kind of game on the line. And, man, I just really struggled in this game. I missed three extra points. It became like almost like a mental thing. Like the first one, I hit the upright on the right. The second one, I hit the upright on the left. And then by the time the third one came, I was just so mentally defeated that I just missed it just completely. And the last one was in the fourth quarter, and we just drove all the way down the field to tie the game, and this extra point would seal the win, and then I missed it, and I remember just being just distraught, and we ended up not winning the game, and I can't. I mean, I I vividly remember just breaking down in front of him, and you know, to your point, the way that he was able to kind of lift me up in that moment was something that had a huge impact on me.
And now, a quick moment as we break. We're going to be back in 20 seconds. Yeah, recently Trevor and I got a chance to go to the Rawlings Experience in Westport Plaza, and man, that was an amazing experience between the apparel, the gloves, the equipment, and having a chance to hit in the batting cages. My kids and nephew got to design their own glove as well. So if you're looking for somewhere to go, be sure to make a trip to the Rawlings Experience in Westport Plaza, and it's an amazing thing. Yeah, and we got a glove right here. So if you look at it here, it's this green glove here that you can have made. You can customize your own and put a lot of great things in there. So check out Westport Plaza, Rawlings Experience, St. Louis. Regardless of where you're from, it's worth the trip to come in. We spent 2 hours there, and we probably could have spent the rest of the day there if we really wanted to. So thank you, Rawlings, for having us yesterday and giving us the tour. Now, back to the show. Matt, there's a lot of parents, me included, that are currently coaching their kids. And your dad was your coach for a long, long time. What I want to know is for those parents out there that are currently coaching their kid, maybe their background isn't in sports. Maybe their kid's like, hey, I want to play baseball, but the parent, I don't know anything about baseball. What were some things that your dad did that helped you create a good relationship? Because that can be kind of tricky, coaching your own kids. It can always be with you all the time. Did your dad do anything specifically to help you separate, what happens on the field and then not let it carry over to home life? Did he have, is there certain boundaries, certain things he put in place to make sure there was a fine line separation of like, hey, right now I'm coach, but then when we're done, I'm back to being dad? And how can you help maybe some other parents that are kind of going through a similar situation like that?
Well, that's a great question. And I think I would start, and one of the things that I think is very important, and I tell people this all the time, and I think that it gets confused and even stereotyped. Son of a coach, made it to the major leagues, and the question I get asked all the time, and what people just assume, is that my dad was this drill sergeant, and we were out there working hard, every single day, hitting in the cage nonstop and waking up at 7 a.m. and doing this, and just we're gonna build this Major League Baseball player. And it couldn't be further from the truth as far as like that mentality. Now, granted, we hit all the time, we practice all the time, but it was because I wanted to. And I think that's an important thing to hear for parents. Is at any point, there's without a doubt in my mind, and I know this, if he was sitting here, he would say the same thing. At any point in my career, if I would have walked up to him and said, Dad, I don't want to play baseball anymore, he would have said, okay, let's go do something else. So I think that as a parent, it's very important to understand that element of it. Like, if your kid enjoys whatever sport this is that he's playing or she's playing, that's the most important thing. So I loved baseball, and we worked on it all the time. My brother, who was 3 years younger than me, did not have that same passion. My dad did not force it on him. And I think that's just a very crucial element to raising kids is, if you're making this sport unenjoyable by just putting that pressure on them of being out there and trying to get them to do these things and be successful and do all this stuff, and if you're taking the fun out of it for them, I think that's the first place that needs to be fixed. The other thing, to answer your question, like, what was it like having a coach as a dad, or a dad as a coach? And I would say that to add on to that, he did a great job of, one, not making me feel like I had to be doing something, but also motivating me and building the program for me to become a successful player, but without forcing it on me. And then when we were out on the field, as our high school team, he was the coach. I mean, yeah, he's my dad, but he's a coach. I mean, he didn't play favoritism with me. I mean, didn't treat me a certain way, treated me like all the other players, and held me accountable for the same things he would hold everybody accountable for, and then having that same relationship that we had off the field, both on the field. I think that was kind of the critical piece to for the whole thing to work.
Yeah. As somebody that's taught and coached my own kid, I can definitely say like it is from your dad's perspective, it is a conscious thought of like, am I being consistent with what I'm expecting of him that I am of everybody else? And am I supporting his interests and making sure they're not my own interests? Because like you said perfectly, he supported you because it was something that you wanted to do. It wasn't something for him. It wasn't for anything. It was because it was something that you had a desire for. So I think there's a really good phrase that I've heard recently. It's called nurture their nature. So whatever they are interested in, keep supporting them, keep challenging them, but making it fun, making it interesting, and finding different ways to keep it engaging and to find a love and keeping it fun. Because kids, if it's not fun anymore, it doesn't matter how hard you work on it, it's going to be for naught, So I think that was a really great example of like, what he pushed you because you wanted to be pushed, and it was because that's something that you wanted, not because it's something that he wanted for you.
He tells me this story all the time, and I think it's in the book, and I've seen it with my own son, and I mean, it goes back to when you're just 5 years old. But to your point, as soon as whatever you're doing doesn't become fun, you're going to lose interest. The kid's going to lose interest, and I think one of the reasons why, I mean, I loved the game of baseball and still do, is my dad did a great job of making it fun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, through my whole life, like my whole childhood, I think back at some of my earliest memories. We would go to his high school field, and he would, we'd go out and hit from second base so that I could hit the ball over the fence. It's just little things to, just keep a young kid engaged in the game, and just always having fun. I mean, I do that same thing with my son now. I mean, Trevor and I were just talking before we got here. When my 7-year-old, he's 6, turning 7. When he comes to the field, we go out just far enough to where when he hits it good, it can go over the fence, and he sprints around the outfield, and I'm chasing him. And I mean, for the longest time, I don't think he really even understood what the game was. It was just like, let's hit this ball as far as we can, and then come try to tag me. I'm just gonna sprint.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah,
it's fun.
It gives me goosebumps because it's in the book. That's the story, and I love the insight that your dad gives, and that's what he did with you. He talks about you being 3 years old and hitting off a tee. My goodness, that's impressive. But the same thing in the backyard, moving the plate back, making it to where you have this motivation to hit it over the fence. But what I love when you mentioned it, if your dad was sitting here today, he wouldn't take credit for what you've done and what you've accomplished. He was doing his job. He was trying to be, and more or less, really the best parent that he could be. And he just happened to be a coach. I mean, what a fun childhood. You had all the resources available, a high school football coach, a high school baseball coach, and a collegiate athlete too in basketball. And I mean, I can't imagine a better environment to grow up in as an athlete. But I want to talk about the importance of being coachable. I believe this is misunderstood a little bit in youth sports because it often goes to both extremes of the spectrum. A coach might be too narrowly focused on one aspect of a player's game, like the mechanics, and telling him to get his elbow up or get his hands back. But then he becomes susceptible in other areas, and he might not be getting the results because he's so focused on the mechanics. Or they'll be overly focused on the results, and as long as he gets that hit or makes that pitch, he's neglecting maybe a proper mechanic that's going to lead to issues down the road. And actually, yesterday, for instance, I had an opportunity to talk to a parent of a talented college pitcher, and they asked me a question that I get asked quite often, and it had to do with the instruction that he was getting from a pitching coach. And she said the player was doing exactly what the coach was asking, but not getting the results that they wanted. And that made me think of something that I tell young professional athletes that I mentor, professional athletes. The job of an athlete is to take in all the information and apply it how they best see fit. In other words, you have to become your own best coach, because at the end of the day, what happens with your career, you're responsible for. The athlete gets the praise and the blame, not the coach. I want to ask you, when a coach gives you feedback, you've had many coaches over the years. Your dad, college, now professional for 12 years, in the big leagues for 12 years. How do you process that? Can you share maybe a story?
Yeah, I can, and I want to start with just add a point to that. I think it's important for the listeners out there to hear. I think when it comes to coaching, and when it comes to a coach, and this is a quote from my dad, I've heard him say many times. I think I think it's great, is sometimes the best thing you can do as a coach is know when not to say anything. And that is a hard lesson for young coaches, young dads to hear. Is like sometimes you've got a kid who has a natural ability to do something, and you're better off just letting him do it and letting him, figure this out on his own. Sometimes overcoaching can cause issues, similar to your story of talking about the college athlete. Sometimes overcoaching can cause issues. And for me, having my dad be the, only coach that I had my whole life until I got to college, that was something I had to learn. When I got to TCU, being coached for the first time in the game of baseball from other people, and hearing different things, I mean, it was an adjustment for me because, I'd always played the game a certain way and had, my swing was a certain way, and I'd already done this. And a lot of it was from very minimal coaching. I mean, my dad, going back to that quote, I mean, he saw something in me as a player and really just kind of was there for, guidance and kind of mentor and help groom and kind of create this, swing. And then you go to college and you have this, college hitting coach trying to, tell you all these different things. And there was a growth period for me when I first got to TCU. I kind of struggled at the beginning. And, it started with just kind of getting some coaching that maybe didn't, I don't want to say it was bad coaching, but just didn't resonate with me. And it was hard for me to kind of make the changes that they were trying to get me to make. So I say all that to say, I think the most important, to your point, Trevor, I think the most important thing you can do as an athlete is to become your own best coach. Figure out what it is that makes you successful, and then get really good at that, and then have the ability to listen and, always be respectful of your coaches. That's one thing that, I feel like I've really gotten good at. And I learned that through my trials and, tribulations at the beginning of my college career, was very respectful of my coaches, listen to what they have to say, try to adopt it, but also use it in a sense that is going to be able to benefit me. How am I going to be able to process what he's saying and then use it to where I can still do what I need to do and make it work.
Well, Matt, man, we appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us. Any final words of wisdom as we wrap up this show today?
Final words of wisdom. I think, we've talked about a lot of great things, but I just kind of want to retouch on just the importance of, as a parent, when I think I'm starting to see it now with my own kids and youth sports, just, if everyone had that kind of mindset of just making sure that the most important thing that we're doing right now is that these kids are having fun and that they're enjoying it and that they're going out there and they're excited to go to practice. They're excited to go to the game, no matter what sport it is, whether it be baseball, softball, football, basketball, whatever it is, soccer. Just, if we start to teeter towards that thing where it becomes a job, then I think, we're failing our children. So let's continue to make it fun, make it enjoyable, and, enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, with my 7-year-old son's team, we have a little phrase. We're like, hey, that's okay, next play. You're going to miss a ball. You're going to strike out. That's okay, next play. So we all say that out loud just because we want everybody to know, hey, we're encouraging, we're staying positive because you're 7 and it should be fun. So, Matt, man, I really appreciate it. Trevor, great show as always. Excited about what we got going on as we try to impact as many people as possible to create a better youth sports experience for parents, coaches, and kids as well. So make sure you follow Trevor, follow Matt Carpenter on social media as we move forward with Tuesdays with Trevor. Trevor, anything else you got before we wrap up the show today?
No, I appreciate your time, Matt. This has been great, and I think it's going to provide a lot of good information for many people, specifically parents and coaches and those looking to make the biggest impact that they have on their children. And we all fall into that boat, so we appreciate your time today. Definitely check Matt Carpenter out on social media. Matt is an impressive individual. His on-field performance speaks for itself, but can't speak highly enough about him as a person, and I know he's going to have many great things that we can look forward to in his career, even away from baseball. But for now, be sure to check out 40athletes.com. Check out the resources for parents, coaches, and athletes. Remember to follow 40 Athletes and Jason on social media as well. We got a lot of dynamic content coming your way. we're continuing to get better and better and have more great guests like Matt Carpenter himself. So continue to tune in. Until next time, Tuesdays with Trevor.
Yeah, man, that's a wrap. If you liked the episode, make sure you give it 5 stars review, and we'll catch you on the next episode.